Kol omer krav amar ma'ikra, kol habasar chatzir, v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz ki ruach Adonai nashva bo. Achein chatzir ha'am, yavesh chatzir novel tzitz u'davar Eloheinu yakum li'olam. A voice says, cry out. But I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades, when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yishovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek l'man shemo. Gam ki elech begetz halmavet, lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yinachamuni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness. He revives me for the sake of his glory. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod, they comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. We have a couple of very significant and informative statements about the deceased to be said in tribute. I will only add one particular thought and share it with the family, because one particular idea that's been really moving me ever since you shared with me certain details of your mother's life. On the one hand, you told me she was a very carefree person and a very happy-go-lucky person who was happiest when she did not need to plan ahead. That was really her style. When she had no agenda. That's how she liked it, to take things as they came and not to stress so much. That's one style of life. That's what she had. That's what she enjoyed, not planning ahead. But then when she became ill at 54, and once she had her stroke, that meant a big change occurred, because a stroke patient, day-to-day life, searching for the correct words and striving to find a way to be understood, everything has to be planned. Every conversation has to be planned. Every conversation, nothing can be casual in conversation. Nothing can be left to, well, whatever happens, happens. Because every gesture and every articulation and every word, the person has to focus and be determined, because it doesn't come casually. It doesn't come instinctively at that point in their life. So when you need to relearn how to express yourself, you can't just say whatever happens, happens. And she had to learn to live that way. And I give her a lot of credit, because in that new reality, she was determined. She showed her mental toughness. She showed her ability to plan in her head how to get the communication out. And she evidently got it done, because you said the three of you certainly always knew what she meant to say. You really did understand. She really did succeed. And others also, to varying degrees. And she remained included in the various family gatherings, because family was always the most important thing to her. And she didn't let anyone stop her in that. And she succeeded not only in being understood, but preserving much of that personality, which you said was so colorful, that she was able to preserve that personality. And only by becoming planned, and only by focusing, and only by not letting things just happen, was she really able to do that. And I think in the meantime, not only did she succeed in making her presence known, but she obviously made all of you a little bit more sensitive about what that situation requires of a family. She may have wanted it in a certain way and envisioned life a certain way, but life led her to a different way, and she kept going. So I give her a lot of credit, and really there's a lot of strength and a lot of admiration that we have to have, and we should have for her. So I know I'm going to call on each of the kids. Cindy, you're going to come forward.
Hi, everybody. Oops, excuse me. Well, my mother was a hard act to follow. Make no mistake about that. She played hard and fast all of her life. She was tenacious, even her last day of life. As the oldest of her children, I'm proud to say and am forever grateful to have had her as my mother. Mom, I hope that you are proud of the person I have become, partially because of you. Thank you. You are now safe in heaven without pain. I am thankful for that. I know we will meet again when it is time. I love you so much, Mom.
Penny?
Bettelou Scheinberg was her full name, but she was often called Betty Boop as a nickname. My mom had a lot of the same characteristics and fun, loving qualities. She had a bubbly personality, was very outgoing and social, and had many friends. My mom was also very carefree, happy-go-lucky. Growing up, I remember my mom was always active with friends, playing canasta with the same group of women for many years. They also had a dinner club, included the spouses, in which to get together socially. And she was a homemaker in those early years. She was also a member of Women's American Ort and Bold once a week at Northfield Lanes, where me and my siblings would spend time in the nursery. She also was a member of B'nai B'rith during those years, and we would spend many summers at the Riviera Swim Club, and then later at Landerhaven, where she even took up golfing, tennis, and she loved horseback riding. Also had Cindy and I taking riding lessons. She would meet and talk with people everywhere she went. She was constantly blowing kisses to show her affection, even to people she would just meet, and nurses and doctors. After my parents' divorce, things changed a bit, and my mom went back into the workforce and did secretarial work and a little bit of modeling until she moved to Florida and lived in a beautiful apartment on Galt Ocean Mile, right on the beach. She continued to work in the secretarial field until she had a debilitating stroke at the young age of 54. She continued to live in a rehab facility in Florida with my sister Cindy, overseeing her care. After a while, we moved her to Cleveland, as there were both myself and my brother to care for her. She moved into R.H. Myers 27 years ago and had been one of the longest residents there. She struggled for many years with her stroke symptoms and being unable to speak, but somehow she did manage to communicate with those she was close with. We had a wonderful, caring, loving healthcare aide named Gina that helped with her care for many years. Gina and her became best friends as well as companions. Mom, you will be so dearly missed by all of us, me, Cindy, and Jeffrey, your son-in-law Mark, daughter-in-law Eileen, your 4 grandchildren, David, Michael, Jamie, Marissa, your 7 great-grandchildren, Santina, Isabella, Maylee, Luca, Mackenzie, Mason, Parker, and one on the way that Michael and Ashley are expecting. Grandma they won't get to know her physically, but she will hear all about her wonderful qualities. We love you and will always be in our hearts forever. God bless you, Mom. Rest in peace. Love you forever.
Jeffrey?
Thank you all again for coming. Please allow me to indulge in a little self-analysis. I believe that each person lives 2 lives in their lifetime. For my mom, there was Bettelou Price and Betty L. Scheinberg. Of course, I grew up with the latter, but over the years and into my adulthood, I came to learn and understand who Bettelou Price was as well. Bettelou was a young, adventurous girl on the shores of the Delaware River in Trenton, New Jersey in the 1930s and 40s. A boisterous and fun-loving free spirit who loved her family and would do anything for them. Money was no object for Bettelou, although truth be told, her family lived a very modest lifestyle back in those days. Life was exciting for Bettelou, much to the consternation of her fairly staid conservative parents, Alexander and Leonora. Her younger brother Arthur suffered brain damage from complications at childbirth. This consumed a large part of her mother's time, while her father worked long hours as an optometrist in town. As a young girl, she also helped to take care of Arthur. Understandably, there were times Bettelou felt like her parents spent too much time on her brother, and rightfully so, since there really weren't many organizations or aid available for loved ones to rely on during those days, and regardless, my Grandma Price would never think of sending Arthur away. As a teenager, Mom would escape from the house and join in with her friends drag racing down the mean streets of Trenton. Or she and her girlfriends would crash the nearby Princeton University campus and try to attract all the college guys. It usually worked, too. On one particular occasion, she and a friend sat down on a university bench and had a lively conversation with a local professor there. That would be one Albert Einstein in the 1950s. And of course, in the great circle of life, many years later, when Eileen and I moved into our first house in Beechwood, who would move in 2 houses down? None other than Albert Einstein's great niece. Mom got a kick out of that. One day, when my Grandpa Price was getting his hair cut in town, he struck up a conversation with a young man who had just started coming into Trenton from New York City and was in the women's clothing business. Grandpa happened to mention he had a daughter that this man really should meet. The next thing you know, Bettelou leaves the nursing program at Temple University and marries Richard on July 3rd, 1955. And so the morphosis into Betty L. Scheinberg began. It was many years into my life when I found out my mother really had no middle name at all. This was my first knowledge of Bettelou Price. After a short stint living as newlyweds in Baltimore, my mom and dad settled in Fairview Park on the west side. Soon after, everyone my parents met would say, "You're both Jewish, why are you on the west side?" So they packed up their belongings, along with their 2 new daughters, Cindy and Penny, and moved to Beechwood, where they continued to raise a family. Dad was off to work 6 days a week, still in the women's clothing business, while Mom was the happy homemaker, raising the girls. My parents still both wanted a boy in the family, so fortunately for me, I arrived several years later. Now comes the Betty L. Scheinberg that I would know. I have fond memories when I was very young of Mom sitting with me late at night stroking my hair to try and calm me down when I had one of my bad headaches. Or the smell of Estee Lauder mixed with cigarette smoke when she kissed me goodbye and went out on a Saturday night with Dad. When we drove in the car together, we both hummed and sang along to whatever tune was on the radio. Didn't matter what it was. We both loved watching Name That Tune and tried to guess it in 3 notes or less before they gave the answers. Mom always made sure my sisters and I were impeccably dressed in the latest fashion and wore the trendy haircut of the day. She spared no expense on us, making sure we participated in summer camps, birthday parties, and school activities, no matter the cost. Those were the times when Dad would see Bettelou resurface. It is true, you can take the girl out of Trenton, but you can't take Trenton out of the girl. Mom still had her wild, unpredictable, and often stubborn side. She still loved her Washington Redskins, even over the hometown Cleveland Browns. Betty Lou tried to surface many times during those early years of their marriage, and unfortunately, this contributed to my parents' divorce in 1974. Mom had custody of us kids, now 2 teenage daughters, and me, a young adolescent. I will always say she tried to raise us the best way she knew how, although her own chaotic upbringing never prepared her for this. It was also a time when divorce wasn't as common as today, so she had few people or resources to fall back on for advice and guidance. We quickly moved from our house into an apartment building in Willoughby Hills. Soon after, Cindy and Penny would graduate from Beechwood High School and move out of the apartment. Now it was just Mom and I. She always knew I didn't like the way things were going in Willoughby, and I sure didn't hide that fact. A couple of years later, my dad met Arlene Burke, a very nice woman from Beechwood. Arlene had 2 older children, Daryl and Karen, who were already grown and out of the house, and a daughter, Lori, who was a grade older than me. As things became more serious between Arlene and my dad, they decided to marry in 1978. I soon realized that this was my chance to move back to my hometown of Beechwood and graduate high school with all of my friends. At only 15 years old, I had to find a way to tell my mother that I didn't want to live with her anymore. To this day, absolutely the hardest conversation I've ever had in my life. Some more time went by. Mom had moved to the sunny beaches of Florida, and I graduated from college and moved to Los Angeles. My alma mater was playing football in the Rose Bowl on New Year's Day, 1988. I decided to surprise my mom and bought 2 tickets to the game and invited her to come out and join me to watch. She said that would be great and jumped on the next plane. When Mom arrived in LA, I remembered her looking tired and a bit stressed. As a 26-year-old at the time, I chalked it up to Mom's being 53 and just getting older and slowing down. When we arrived at the game, I practically raced up the walk from the parking lot to the Rose Bowl and never once looked behind me. When I did, Mom was way behind, way agitated, and noticeably way tired as well. We argued some about my insensitivity to her age and condition, and by the time she left Los Angeles, we were not on speaking terms. I exacerbated the situation by not calling her that following Mother's Day. When she called me that night, the last thing my mother said was how upset, hurt, and alone I made her feel, and that she would never forgive me. Little did I or anyone else at the time know, but Mom was having some occasional trans-ischemic attacks, or TIAs, usually a precursor to a potential stroke. The next time I saw or spoke to my mom, about a month later, I was standing by her bedside. She was in a hospital in Florida after suffering a major stroke. The doctor told my sisters and I that she couldn't respond to us because the stroke occurred on the left side of her brain and affected the right side of her body and her speech. We didn't know if she would survive the night, but if the doctors could control the swelling, she would make it, but most likely have some permanent paralysis on her right side and quite possibly never speak again. Mom looked at me that night like I had never seen before. She was the proverbial deer in the headlights, afraid and not understanding why she couldn't speak. And there I was, thinking of our last phone conversation. At that point, I realized the ramifications of my actions. The next 28 years, I would spend trying to make it up to my mom, my sisters and I helping to take care of her every need. With Cindy alone in Florida trying to raise a young son, the 3 of us decided that I would move back to Cleveland, where Penny already lived. Then we moved Mom back here in 1990. She went to live at R.H. Meyer's Apartments, a congregate living facility just a step down from independent living. The average resident's age at Myers was easily in the mid-70s. Mom was just 56. To date, Mom has become the longest tenured resident living at Myers for well over 26 years. I honestly think she deserves some kind of plaque for that. I always said if it weren't for my mom's stroke, I probably never would have left LA for Cleveland and met Eileen. But from tragedy comes good fortune, and for that I feel indebted to her as well. Mom's life since the stroke has been a series of birthdays, graduations, weddings, special anniversaries, family vacations, and of course the occasional funeral. I am proud that she took all of her adversity in stride. I'm not saying she never had moments of why me or this isn't fair, but she tried to join in the best way she could. Mom even attended her great-granddaughter Santina's first communion just a few weeks ago. As Penny said, Mom had her aide and caregiver Gina by her side, who spent so much time with my mom over these last 8 years that they became great friends. They shared so many of the same interests, lifestyles, and love of family that I truly believe their meeting and friendship was meant to be. Thank you again, Gina. People who met my mom and got to know her said how nice and friendly and loving she was. She always tried painstakingly to respond with a thank you and either a blown kiss or, as Penny said again, for the really special people, a kiss on the hand. They always asked, "What was your mother like, you know, before the stroke?" My answer has never changed. I would tell them that Mom was so outgoing and had so much personality that she could have a conversation with a rock, and the rock would be compelled to reply. Bob Seger, the rock and roll singer and songwriter, unknowingly dedicated a song to my mom. He would wail out the tune, "Betty Lou's Getting Out Tonight." Just the title of the song summed up Mom's life, and it was always her favorite. A few days before her passing, the two of us were alone in her room at Montefiore Hospice. She woke up in the middle of the night, breathing heavily and very uncomfortable. I came to her bedside, stroked her hair, excuse me, and for the second time in my life, she gave me that same deer in the headlights look. As I continued to stroke her hair, I told her she didn't have to fight anymore and just to close her eyes. This time, her look became one of love and understanding and what I hope was redemption. We love you, Mom. Keep singing in heaven, Betty Lou, and suffer no more.
Cindy, Mom, Uncle Jeff, that was beautiful. Tough act to follow. But over the last few days, in looking over pictures of Grandma Betty, it really made me wish that us grandchildren would have had the opportunity to know Betty Lou as a young lady. We always hear the stories from her friends and family about what a vivacious, charismatic woman she was. Grandma was 42, I believe, when David was born, so you can imagine what a fun, young grandmother she was. David and I are the oldest, so we have fond memories of sleeping over her apartment on the beach in Florida and driving in her green talking convertible. As a bonus, she would always feed us with licorice and ice cream, probably so we had enough sugar to keep up with her high energy level. Grandma's personality spoke for itself with her red hair and her ever-fashionable jewelry and wardrobe. Her vibrant smile became evident on every one of our cheeks because she was sure to leave a bright red lipstick mark when she kissed us hello and goodbye. Every time, even if you'd try to turn a little, she'd be sure to leave her mark. With 6 grandchildren and 7, soon to be 8 great-grandchildren, I think it's safe to say that each and every one of us have a little bit of Grandma's spunk. And if you don't believe me, just stop by Shiva later, and I'm sure the great-grandkids, 7 of them under 8 years old, will be in their full glory, running, having fun, and causing ruckus all over the place. Ironically, we're sitting at Sherry Park Apartments, a place Grandma called home many years ago when David and I would throw matchbox cars off of her balcony. The last time Grandma was really out and about was a short 30 days ago for Santina's first communion. And even though you knew she didn't feel so hot, she looked great. To top it off, she of course had her signature glass of Chardonnay at lunch. Up until her last days, Grandma's personality shined through. I will always remember when we were visiting with Grandma at hospice and the whole family was there, so the room got a little bit loud. And there were many discussions going on, but you could mostly hear her 3 children, bantering in front of her as siblings always do. And at that moment, Grandma just looked at me, smiled, and shook her head. I smiled back and said, well, they're your kids. There's a famous country music song titled When You Say Nothing at All, written in 1987 and remade several times since then. The lyrics say, it's amazing how you can speak right to my heart. Without saying a word, you can light up the dark. I think that sums it up for nearly 30 years of Grandma's life. What happened to her was so sad and unfair, but she persevered and fought through to live a full life, always smiling and well put together. Grandma's condition allowed each of us grandchildren to learn from a very young age how to communicate and admire determination through life in the most challenging of circumstances. I hope that each one of us will cherish each day and carry with us even just a small piece of the will to live that Grandma blessed us with. Grandma Betty, we will truly miss you and your beautiful smile and wit, and hold the dear memories and love you gave to us all. Rest in peace, Grandma. We love you.
Let's rise now for the memorial prayer. El mole rachamim, shochen bamromim, hametzei merucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, b'malot kedoshim utehorim, kezohar rakia masirim, et nishmat Batya bat Avraham v'Leah, shahalcha lolama, v'gan eden tehei menuchata, ano bal harachamim astireha, b'seter knafecha leolamim, utzror b'tzrorechem et nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach b'shalom amishkava, V'nomar Amen. May we remember all of the worthy deeds that she performed while in the land of the living. May her soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May she rest in peace. And we all say Amen. Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to the family, to Cindy and Penny and Mark and Jeffrey and Eileen, David and Margaret, Michael and Ashley, Jamie and Michael, Marissa, Evan, Bryn, Santina, Isabella, Maylee, Luca, Mackenzie, Mason, and Parker, and to her special friend Gina. The family will be receiving friends for the Shiva visitation at Sherry Park. That's 2111 Acacia Park Drive in Lyndhurst. Again, 2111 Acacia Park Drive in the North Building Community Room. That's today following the burial portion of the service until 8 p.m. tonight, and then tomorrow from 1 to 4, and then again 6 to 8. That's tomorrow, Wednesday, 1 to 4, 6 to 8, today following burial until 8 p.m. Please remain in your seats another moment. Let's arrange the processional to move us to the burial portion of the service. Pallbearers should now come forward.